I'm waiting for the recording to start here. So we've started a recording, and this is for the folks that couldn't attend today. So I am going to kind of walk us through kind of from top to bottom, beginning to finish, kind of joining the Zoom meeting and the different functions. I basically was trying to figure out how to do this. I thought that I could mirror my screen for you all and you'd be able to see what I was doing on Zoom, and that's not the case. Once you are hosting in Zoom, you basically can just see everything else other than what's on your Zoom screen. So what I did earlier was I took screenshots of a fake meeting with myself on my phone and basically to provide kind of like a walkthrough of what it's going to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'll keep everybody muted. I'll walk through and I'll stop at different places to answer questions, but I'm going to share my screen. And so it'll come up. If you're on a smaller screen like a phone, you can kind of use your fingers to pinch and zoom in like you would like a picture on like a tablet. And I don't expect you, some of them have smaller words, and don't worry about all of the details. And I'll try to make clear what I'm trying to show you here. So I'm going to get started here. So I think the really basic thing to start with, and I guess it kind of is a little bit intuitive, is the invitation. You know, I think that a lot of folks get confused sometimes with all the information that can come out on a Zoom invitation. And so many times you get an invitation like this, and it has kind of the invitation at the top, and it has a topic title and a time, and it has the Zoom web link. So Joe's got to figure out what he's doing too. Let's just go ahead and do it this way. So the big thing I think to recognize is the Zoom meeting link right there. I just highlighted it in yellow. That's the main link. If you have web access or web service, that link will take you directly to the Zoom meeting. You don't necessarily have to have the app downloaded. It'll open it in the web server. You can use an app on a phone or a tablet. And I'll show you kind of an example of what that looks like here in a second. But the biggest thing really is this meeting ID number, and I just highlighted it there. That meeting ID number really gets you into the meeting. If you have the link, many times you just click the link, it'll take you straight into the Zoom meeting, and you don't need to enter the meeting ID. But if you are using an app on the tablet or the smartphone, when you log on, and I'll show that here again in a second, that you will use that meeting ID. If you,
Joe,
yeah.
I don't see that screen, that meeting ID screen.
No, I haven't brought it up yet. This is just the PDF.
Okay, so you just have the Zoom join a meeting sign in on there? Okay.
Yeah, I'll show that here in just a second. And then the other thing here is if you are unable to join with a computer or tablet or smartphone, you can use this dial by location. And I like to joke, they give you pretty much every number across the US, and sometimes they'll give you international numbers, but I typically go with the number nearest to us, Chicago. You basically can dial that number, and it's just like a conference call line. When you call in, it'll ask you for your meeting ID number. Now, we didn't do it for this or some of our other meetings, but in Zoom, you do have the opportunity to create a password too, if you've created a meeting. So some meetings, you may get a password as well. And that is an extra layer where you have to enter that numbered password to get into the meeting. So that's just something to be aware of. So usually when you go to click the link, this is kind of what you see right here. You basically see something that says, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. So one of the things that we do as a host is we have what's called a waiting room. And so as you are waiting to get into the meeting, this will pop up, and you will see that screen. And basically what it's doing is allowing us to see who's trying to log in. And after you're admitted to the meeting, this is kind of like your next screen. It usually says join with computer audio. You can test your microphone and speaker. If you notice, can you all see Amy, can you see my pointer there? Okay, good. So you have the computer audio here. There's also another option that you can click join with computer audio, and then there's also phone call. So, and I kind of mentioned this before, that there's this option to join by phone too. And so if you click that phone call, this is what pops up. It has the dial-in numbers that you can use and choose from, and then that meeting ID and a participant ID. So if you don't have a computer where you're sure that you're going to be able to hear the audio very well, whether it's the speaker or being able to communicate, like talking with your microphone, you may opt to use that phone call. So then you can still see the video, but then call in on the telephone as well. So I think it's easy for me because I use the computer a lot for me to forget that there are folks that use the app or the phone. So I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like when we use that app or phone, phone app. There we go. Is that coming up? I think it just kicked me off there. Yeah. And even if you use Zoom a lot, you still can have problems like me. All right. So I think you all should be able to see that. So basically, when you join with the app or phone, you'll see this kind of like start a meeting, join with video meeting on the go, join a meeting. So basically, you don't need to necessarily sign in or create an account. You can basically do it by just clicking join a meeting, and that's where that meeting ID that I mentioned earlier comes in handy. And I want to show you what that looks like. So if you are logging in with a phone or on the app, here's kind of what it looks like. And this was from my phone, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So you have the meeting, you put your meeting ID up here, and then it asks you for your name, and you can place your name in there and then just click join. And it's similar to the computer there. And you'll get the same screen that I showed you earlier, kind of like that waiting, the host is waiting to let you in screen. So that's kind of, basically the very basic of this is how you kind of join the meeting. I don't know if there are any questions right now. Yeah.
For the meeting ID, is that something that's automatically generated, or do you put that in?
So if you create the meeting yourself, I typically have it automatically generated as a number, but there is a possibility that you can create a meeting ID. So you can, I've done one where I did District 92, I think, or, clean water or something like that. So you can, if you're using Zoom yourself, you can actually create a distinct ID using a phrase or, letters, or make up your own number ID. Good question. Any questions about kind of joining the meeting? I know that's very basic, but I think that that's something that seems easy, but sometimes can be confusing. All right. Well, I'm going to jump into the really fun stuff here. So when you log on typically this is like one of the first things you see. And basically what this means is if no one's sharing their video, this is actually the screen you see, because there's no one sharing their video. There's no one. So you literally see a screen like this. And so if the participant's not talking and the video hasn't started, this is what it looks like. And so the big thing I want to tell you about here, and I'm going to bring up another screen, and we'll talk about this bar down here at the bottom. So when you log on, this is typically what you see here. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. Amy, can you see that okay? Yeah, okay. So your main bar down here at the bottom, I think the thing to focus on in the beginning are these two main ones. On the left corner, you have your microphone and your video. And basically the easiest way to use those functions is just to click them. You can click mute and unmute to turn off your microphone or turn it back on. You can click stop video, start video to start your video monitor. Now I will tell you that because I did this in a host view, you'll see a couple things here that won't be on your screen if you're just viewing as an attendee. So you won't typically have the share screen function, polls, security, record, breakout rooms. Those are primarily functions that the host will have. I think the biggest ones for you are the participant list, and we'll look at that here in just a second right there with the little face. And then we also have the chat function, which a lot of you have already figured out where that is, but we'll talk about that here in just 1 second. So to start with kind of those functions, that first one, the chat function, what you see is this chat box will come up when you click that chat function. And I think there are two big things to recognize here when using the chat function is, you type your message in down here, and up here, and I know there's no chat right now, but up here you would see in this dialog box any chat that's kind of going on right now. But I think the big thing that a lot of folks don't pay attention to when they're using Zoom for the first time is that, see that if you look at that button down there where it says to everyone, I think that's a really important thing. If you click on that, it'll actually take you through the list of attendees, and you can send a private message. So if I wanted to send something to Amy that said, hey, Amy, I noticed this, can you take care of this? Or, hey, I saw that you were at this meeting. How's it going? So most of the time when you're in the chat box, if you're asking questions, that kind of thing, you would want to address it to everyone. You do have the option to send a private chat. Now, I will tell you, in a meeting like this where it's being recorded, the recordings do, I guess you should caveat this at the beginning. See, I didn't even do that. The recording does record all chats, including private chats. So it's best to keep it above bar. That's all I'll say. And the chat function is very similar to most chat functions you would use elsewhere on the internet. So the other thing is the participant list. So when looking at the participant list, you'll see a list of folks that are attending. Amy shaking her head at that picture. I don't know who that fellow is in those pictures. So up here you have your attendees, and you can actually as an attendee, you can control your functions here. So like your mute and your video function, you can control those by clicking those in the participant list as well. So typically, if you're not the host, you can't unmute folks or ask them to turn their video off or on. But if you're the host, that is something that you have the ability to do. Down here at the bottom, you'll note that there are little icons, and sometimes folks will use those for meetings. So like if you're voting on something, you could down here click yes or click no. And when you do that, I'll make a little star up here. They'll show up next to your name in the participant list, and you'll be able to, the hosts and the other participants will be able to see what you're clicking. So yes, no. Similar, they have like slower, go faster. And if you want to kind of play with them a little bit while I'm talking here, I think that's kind of fun too. And I'd recommend that as I'm talking to you all, feel free to kind of click around in your options to kind of see what they look like. If you click one of these and it shows up and you're like, oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. If you just click it again, it turns it off. There's also this little guy over here on the far right that says clear all, and you can do that as well. And it'll kind of clear those little emoticons. So on the main screen, down there next to those audio and video functions, you see down here, usually on the computer screen, there's a little arrow there that you can click, and it is different on the phone. You have to go into the settings, but you can click down here. And I mentioned earlier to a couple folks before we started recording that sometimes you can pick what your microphone or your headphones, like your speaker or your microphone would be. And so you do that here. You can kind of click the audio function, and you can see up here, it says on mine, microphone array, speaker HP. I didn't have my headphones in when I took this screenshot, but one of the things that would come up here on mine now currently is it would also offer me Bluetooth headphones as an option for my microphone and my speaker. So that's where you would see different options if you have something available to you.
Coincidentally, you can click the wrong button and kick yourself off.
Yeah, and that is a pro tip. That is something that is easily done to get kicked off the meeting, whether you do it yourself or for some reason it happens somehow unbeknownst to you. So the good news is with a Zoom link, you can get back in the same way you did before. Click the link or call in the same way. So the next one thing I wanted to share is if you, on that audio, you click the settings button, one of the things that it'll allow you to do is kind of bring up those additional settings. So you can see here, it kind of gives you those more in-depth options. So similarly on the video screens, you have that start and stop video down there. In the same way, if you kind of click that little icon down there under the video, it brings up a similar type of bar, and it kind of shows, what your camera options are. So if you have a camera on the computer or if you have a camera plugged into the computer. And then if you have choose virtual background as an option, this is where you would find it. It's usually right here, but there is another in-depth video settings as well under that little icon. So when you click the detailed settings, this is basically what you see. It'll come up again with these options to kind of go more in depth, and it gives you different options for your screen. And then this is also, if you look, I mentioned this is the in-depth options for video, and the came up with the same screen for audio, but on this left-hand bar, and I didn't mention it when we were talking about the audio settings, this basically brings up all the settings that you have available to you in Zoom. So you can kind of go through these, your video, your audio, any other options that may be there for you. And like I mentioned with the options on the bar at the bottom, you may not have all these options if you're not the host. So I think that's something just to keep in mind. And Julie asked, how do I get all that? How do you get those fancy backgrounds? So if you have the option to do a virtual background, in those settings, if you click virtual background, and there's Amy. Amy's at the beach again. So there are preset ones typically that come with Zoom, and then you can download some, and I'll show you some here at the end. We'll have a little bit of fun with some of the Zoom backgrounds, and you can download some. And I mentioned at the beginning, my background is actually the White River when I was out fishing. So one of the things that you can do is any picture that you take that's like a JPEG picture or like a saved picture file on your computer, you can upload it in here and it can be your Zoom background. The last thing I'll show you, and it's I haven't seen a lot of people use it as much, and that's those little reactions, Zoom reactions down there in the bottom. So if you look down on your bar at the bottom, there's this thing called reactions. And so you have this little reaction button down there. And basically what you can do is you can click, usually it's just those two, like the thumbs up or the clapping hands. And when you do that, it'll show that icon by your picture. So that's a little different than those icons that I showed you in the participant list. And I think that's probably the biggest differentiation there, is that when you click any of the reactions, if you're in a main view, it will show the reaction next to your picture in the main view versus in the participant list. So if you look right now, Amy just did one, and there's a thumbs up there on her screen. The other thing, and I apologize, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, and it's another one on the main screen that's a good one to pay attention to. And that's up here, this view button. So anytime you're in the main screen, you have this view button. And what that allows you to do is you can click it and you can enter full screen. So it kind of broadens the screen to take up your whole screen. So, and the nice thing about having the full screen is that when it's in the full screen, other things can't pop up. So for instance, all these screenshots I'm showing you, I have little icons all popping up at the bottom of my toolbar. But if you put it in full screen, you don't have those. And you use the same button to get out of that full screen mode. You can also click on the different views. And so you can click speaker view. And so typically when you're in like a presentation like this, and I think for the Virtual Tuesday presentations, it's probably the best thing. If you click that speaker view, then all you see is the person that's talking and their screen. And that's not necessarily always, it's not always needed when they're sharing a screen like a PowerPoint. But if I was just talking to you as a presenter without a PowerPoint and you wanted just to see me to focus on the speaker, you can click that speaker view and it would bring up just me. Now, if you're having like a discussion, and we'll do that here, you would click from that view up there, you can click gallery view, and gallery view will broaden the picture and it'll show you everybody that's in that meeting to a certain extent. Obviously, if you had 100 people in a meeting, your Brady Bunch screens will get really, 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 really tiny. You wouldn't be able to see people. So they break them into multiple screens, and there are arrows at the bottom in gallery view that you can kind of click on.
Do you see that Julie has a question from Warren County?
Yeah, I do see that. So it says, I'm on the web browser and not the app. Does that make a difference? And it makes a difference in the sense that typically on the web browser, you see more functions. Would you agree with that, Amy? I feel like on the phone, you have a little less functionality, and sometimes it's that way with the app too. When you're on the web browser, like in the computer, you tend to have more options than you do on the application. But in terms of the quality of the sound and the picture and all that, it doesn't necessarily matter. I think the biggest issue with using the app, like on a tablet or a phone, in my personal opinion, is that if you are sharing documents, and you're trying to look at things like, let's say I'm trying to show my board a budget and I'm bringing it up on the screen. There are ways to zoom it in, but if you're looking on your, you can't see it, on my iPhone, if you're looking at the iPhone, that Excel, you know, is going to be tiny. So you'll have to kind of zoom in and try to use your fingers to zoom in. A little bit better on a tablet, but then still not as good as maybe on a TV. So, or on a computer. So one of the things that, and Julie, we were just talking about this in your big room, showing it on a big screen. One of the things that I've done for things like conferences, if you're not going to be talking as much, if you can split your screen to another screen away from your camera, you can broadcast a Zoom conversation or a presentation onto a big screen. So one of the things that I do is I have an HD connection that's on the computer, and so I actually, my HD TV here at home, if I have a big presentation, I can attach it to that and cast a Zoom meeting to a little bit bigger screen. And you can also do that with a projector. If you have a projector that you can hook your computer up to, you could project through a projector kind of the presentation and the speaker. Obviously, if you're doing discussion, the only thing they're going to see is what's in front of that camera. So the screen may be in a different location than the camera. Does that help, Julie? I know you're chatting there, but if you have another follow-up question, just let us know. Yeah, she said that she doesn't have as many options that I've been going over, like the reactions, but it does have some. And I found that out too, that depending on certain machines and that kind of thing, you may not have as much options. I know that when you get into the Zoom app, if you don't have the ability to do a virtual background, depending sometimes on what application, what screen you're using, it's harder to use a virtual background. Whereas on the computer, I find it easier to open up virtual backgrounds. So so that's kind of I'd say the basic overview of all the different functionalities that you would typically have. I did want to go back over, I mentioned the phone screens. And so I want to show you kind of what it looks like on a phone screen. Like for those of you that aren't on a phone right now or a tablet. So if you can see that, this is kind of what it would look like on an iPhone when you first log on. And you kind of see like the connection in my microphone and my name, and this little icon. So the thing that's interesting about most tablets and smartphones, since they are typically a touch screen, you don't see the functions until you touch the screen or move your finger around on the screen. And so I'll show you here what that looks like. You saw that first picture where it was just kind of that screen in my phone. And so if I were to touch the screen with my finger, this is what it would look like now. Can you all see that? So now you have those options at the bottom. So sometimes when you first come on, like on a tablet or a phone, if you haven't used it before, it can be a little, a little disorienting, especially if you've only used the computer. But you can tap your screen, and these options will come up. And then, just like some of those others, you can only fit so many options on a phone. So if you have a more button, you can click more and see more of those options. The other thing that you can do on the phone that you typically don't have in the computer, you just unmute your microphone. On the phone, there's this option that on the main screen, there's 2 dots. Let me bring up this screen for you and you can see what it looks like. So if you swipe, like if you're swiping between pictures or swiping between screens on a phone, swipe over, and this is another option that you have. And so you can tap that just to talk. You don't see the video, but it is an option on the phone that if you just and like they call it safe driving mode, although now in Indiana you shouldn't be driving with a phone in your hands according to the new law as of July 1. But this is a way that if you were doing like a task and you didn't have the option to look at the video, or you're kind of otherwise entertained doing something different, you can kind of tap that screen and hold it to speak. the phone. So that's one difference between like using the phone and the computer. And it is nice if you need to be mobile and still participate in a meeting, you kind of have that capability. So that's kind of my screenshots for walking through for y'all. And I wanted to talk maybe about just kind of like some tips and tricks for getting on and doing and participating in some of these Zoom presentations. If you're going to participate with a camera, this is just a tip. You know, you can see my face very well. Anytime there's light in front of you, it will cast light onto your face. If there's any light behind you, and the light behind you is more than the light in front of you, there you go, Amy. It'll darken you out, and the more light there is behind you. So typically, I think it's hard. So I'll do this. Let me see if I can show you all here my video. Surprise, behind me, there's 2 windows. Whenever I use Zoom, I cannot have those windows open during the day because what it does is it backwashes me and you can't see my face, especially when you're in like a smaller meeting. You want people to see the capability of using a video chat is that they can see your face. So that's something to think about before you use it for any kind of particular meeting. And I think that goes with probably any video chat function, that if you have light in front of you, you want more light in front of you than behind you so people can see your face and kind of make out your features. And the more you do that, the more you kind of get the hang of it, I think. Another thing that you can do in Zoom, and the host can turn it off for you. But so right now, if you're on your computer, one of the things that you can do is you can hover over your name and click the More button, and you can rename yourself. So you can click on that participant list. You can, now if you're the host, you should behave yourself and not rename people terrible names, but heck, Amy's co-host, she's probably going to rename me something, I don't know. So that's another thing. And what's nice about that function is if you ever use Zoom for, and I'll tell you for us, for like a board meeting, and you have people calling in on the telephone, one of the things that you can do is the telephone comes up as just a telephone number. It doesn't come up as a name. So what you can do as the host is you can go in and rename people as they call in. So that helps you, as people are talking, that you can tell who's talking on the telephone. Good one, Julie. I like it. But the naming thing is a nice convention if you are having kind of like a mixed conversation between folks that are on the video chat and on the telephone. The audio and the camera, you can, like I mentioned before, you can kind of play around with how that works. Amy, I don't think you have your headset on right now, right? But like Amy has a plug-in headset that she can use that has a microphone and headset. Oh, there she's going to model it for you. My headphones are Bluetooth headphones that are for my phone, but they also connect to things like the computer. So you can use like the microphone from your computer, but have headphones plugged in for better hearing. I like using the headphones, even if I'm not talking, because it has the sound in my ears, so I hear better. And if there's something going on in the other room or other background noise, it kind of drowns it out for me, so I hear better. So I think that if you have any trouble hearing people talk, it's better to have headphones, in my opinion, if they are comfortable for you.
And I got these for, I believe, $16 on Amazon. So they're noise canceling. I wear them if I'm going to be on a long time and I really need to hear well, or if somebody talks that you can't hear very well, you can hear really well with those. And they just plug right into my laptop. And then I know that They also, I've heard that the sound is a lot better when I speak too. People can hear better. So if there's usually any issues, I wear those. Or like I said, if I'm going to be on for a long time, they're very helpful and not very expensive.
The other thing that you can do if you do cast from your, like, take the video from your computer and use a cord to move it to like a projector or a television. If you're using like a video cord, a lot of the time, not always, sometimes you might have to play with the settings. It will take the audio and transmit it to whatever you've got it plugged into. So when I plug if I take an HD cord and plug my computer into a flat screen TV, it actually will play the Zoom audio over the television, and then I can still use my microphone to talk, which is a nice function. So if you're doing it for a group, you have that potential ability that if you can connect your computer audio and video to the device, then you can kind of have a little bit more stereo sound. Another kind of fun trick is the virtual backgrounds. And I mentioned that earlier. So a virtual background, you can use a picture that you already have. You can find them all over the internet. Obviously, it's best to keep things appropriate, keep it fun. So, you know, I think Amy promised that I would use some of my backgrounds when we had our planning meeting. We should have a contest and see who knows what each of the backgrounds are from. But when you use a virtual background, and sometimes it's nice if you use a virtual background, because like mine with the river, I feel like that's less distracting than my curtains. I don't know why. It just seems like it is. The Simpsons couch that I have up right now is in or the hallway from The Shining. You see the twins down there, maybe. My Top Gun up in the sky. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with Zoom, and I think the thing with any of technology is, in my mind, I think you learn a lot as you use it and go along. Julie said no Blue's Clues. I do have SpongeBob, so my Under the Sea one. But so what I was saying though is that you learn something new all the time. So one of the things that I learned today is that, did you know that Zoom has a whiteboard? And so you can do things, and the host can draw and do different things and clear. And so I read today that some businesses that have been doing Zoom meetings, at the end, they'll use the whiteboard to play like Hangman. So you like do Hangman, and they'll do, oh yeah, Belinda, I like your background.
I'm just messing around while you were talking.
Yeah, it looks good.
My prompts are a little different on my iPad from what is on a computer too.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I mean, I think that getting on and playing around with it, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
For the backgrounds, I don't have any on mine, so how would I get those on?
Good question. So when you go here, let me get out of here. So when you go to your video settings and go to virtual backgrounds, there's a little plus button next to choose virtual background if you're on the computer, and it'll ask you to add image or add video. And so what I do is I just save, and the picture of the White River was from my phone. So I emailed the picture from my phone to my email and downloaded it on my desktop, and I just uploaded the picture. You can also go online and you can find images and save the image to your desktop as a picture. If you get really clever with it, now I can't take any credit for this one because this is one that was already in the Zoom one. But if you get really clever, they have these video ones. I don't know if you guys can see that, like the waves rolling in the background, where you can download like these video clips. So if you click on that plus button, it should allow you to either add an image or a video. And
Yeah,
so
I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So for example, like my daughter had virtual ballet back when the pandemic first started, and she was very nervous about doing it. So I downloaded the ballet studio for her, and then she was the coolest kid in class. So that's you can find all kinds of fun things to kind of play around with the background. Now, one of the things that I didn't talk a lot about is Zoom etiquette or virtual meeting etiquette. One of the things that they recommend you not do is have a lot of annoying backgrounds and keep changing them. So, do as I say, not as I do, right? So, obviously you don't want to have a background that's so distracting for a serious meeting. The other thing is that when you're not talking, if you're primarily listening in a listening function, but you have the capability, if you have the capability to talk, you should stay on mute if you're not talking. When you have a lot of folks talking all at once and having their microphones on, you do kind of get that background noise or feedback from different background noises. So you should try to stay on mute if you can. One thing it kind of falls in the etiquette, but also a little bit in like a tip or trick, is that if you are having trouble with connection, so like while I'm talking, if I'm freezing and you're not hearing me very well, you can turn your video off, because it'll kind of help you with the bandwidth, because basically then your camera's not trying to keep up with the presentation. And if as a host you are trying to present something and you're having trouble with the video freezing and stalling, you can go through and turn off everyone's cameras, and that'll actually kind of free up some of that bandwidth, and it should help. So that's usually one of the first things they say, is if you're having issues with it freezing up, turn off your video if you're not the presenter. If you're the host and you're having problems with the presentation freezing up, ask everybody else to turn off their video or turn them off for them. And that usually helps a little bit too. Well, I don't want to talk at you all night. So if there's any other questions or comments, and by no means am I a Zoom expert. I was looking up kind of fun shortcuts and things that you can do. I think the other thing that is nice about it is that you can get in there when you create meetings and do different things with the scheduling and that kind of thing that I haven't even begun to reach and test the capabilities of. So just like with any technology, the more you use it, the more you play around with it, the more you get kind of, in the hang of using it, and you can kind of play with more of those functions. Did I show enough backgrounds? I don't want to leave anybody hanging that I didn't.
So how did you get to the whiteboard?
So typically you can only do that as the host. However,
Okay.
what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to allow all participants to share. So you should be able to click the share button now, and one of your options should be whiteboard. And so like I mentioned that I read online today that an office group was using the whiteboard to do like Hangman. The other thing that they will do, so Belinda's got it right now.
I've got it.
Yeah. So one of the other things that they were doing was they were, as a staff meeting, playing like Pictionary, where each person would take turns, trying to draw a picture, and the other people guessing the phrase or the picture. So that's one of the nice things as hosts. If you have like a small, group, you can give some of the functionality to other folks. or as the host, you can control that and just have that functionality yourself.
Okay, now Joe, I'm pushing that share screen and it says you cannot start screen share while the other participants are sharing.
And that's another functionality. So now try it, Julie.
Okay.
Because Belinda had it, you couldn't share your screen.
Oh,
As the host, one of the things that I can do is I could have stopped Belinda from using it and allowed you to use it.
oh. So now, okay, so now this is me.
Yeah, so that's you now.
Okay. Not real good at the pen.
Hey, that's all right.
Okay, I see. So you control that. Okay.
Right. So yeah, I have options like advanced sharing options as the host, and I didn't want to get too far into that if you're not hosting a meeting at this juncture. But if folks are doing more hosting, that's something we can play around with. But like I can change it so multiple participants can share. So Amy, I'm going to share the whiteboard. Or actually, Amy, will you try sharing the whiteboard? And I want to try sharing the document at the same time. So if you click share and click whiteboard, it should give you the whiteboard. And I can bring up something at the same time. I don't know if that worked.
I've got whiteboard, but I don't see yours.
What do you all see? Like
Yours.
Belinda,
Yours.
Julie? Joe's? Okay. Huh, that's interesting.
But you don't see mine? You don't see the
No.
whiteboard?
No.
Huh.
Interesting.
Because I know that there's a way to, now I see yours, Amy. Oh, you know
Good
what? Hold
job,
on.
Amy.
Here, I got it now, Amy. Now keep doing it, Amy. I think I've got it now. Let me figure out here.
Checking out all the other stuff here. Ah. Cool.
Well, let me do side by side before. Do you all have view options? If you do view options, does it let you put it side by side? So at the top, there's usually a little bar that says view options, and you can make it full screen. There's also a side by side mode.
View options.
I don't think I have that.
No, either. I don't see that.
Huh.
I see it, but side by side mode. Up at the very top is that view. So I'm at
Okay.
side by side.
Does it show my screen and Amy's screen, or does it just show one of them?
I see where it says a pink hello. Who did that? Amy, did you do
Amy.
that?
Yeah.
But you don't see mine's a document.
Oh, no, I do not see yours, Joe. When I did push, yeah, no.
Huh. It's all right. I figured out how to annotate Amy's writing.
So you guys could do tic-tac-toe then, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So my understanding is folks have got really creative with, and then so as the host, I can stop Amy sharing.
Wait, I wasn't done.
So one of the other things that we can do is we can do like polls, and Amy's been talking with some of the DSS about doing this. I'll give you an example here. just indulge me for 1 second here. All right, you ready? So the other thing you can do is you can launch a poll. Can you all see that on your screen?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you can do, I just did that while we were in this presentation, but if you're the host, one of the things that you can do is you can create questions in advance for polling. And so since I didn't have this question created in advance, it took me a minute to create it. But one of the things that you can do is you can create questions in advance. No one picked annoying yet. I think my wife would pick that one if she was on this one.
One thing about that, Joe, is I can't see the poll because I'm a host, co-host.
Huh,
Yeah, and I'm not sure why.
interesting.
Might be because we're signed into the same account, because when I click on polls, it says
It
you're
might
logged
be.
in from another device.
Oh, you know what, probably. So can you all see that? Can you see that now, Amy? I shared the results.
No.
It still doesn't show up, huh? Well, we're kind of coming in, I think, to the end of the hour here. I'm exactly on time. 8 p.m. Hey, Don?
Was this helpful for you guys?
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
Well,
it was.
good. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording here if there's not any more questions.